9 spine-chilling family secrets exposed, unexplained horrors they tried to bury forever. Sarah Davis thought she knew horror. After all, dealing with 2 energetic kids in Parma, Ohio, was no picnic. But nothing could prepare her for the night she stumbled upon the cursed legacy of her family. As she sifted through the dusty box in the attic, the air thickened, almost electric with an unshakable presence. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering like ghostly fingers. She pulled out an old recipe for disaster, a series of letters, each one dripping with dread. The Watcher. A sinister name that echoed ominously in her mind. Ethan and Lily had been acting strange. Nightmares plagued Ethan, pulling him into dark worlds of screaming shadows. Lily, ever the imaginative one, was whispering about a man with black eyes, who watched her from the window. Every night, the darkness crept closer. There was no safety in their suburban bubble. Sarah could hear whispers echoing through the corners of the house at night, chilling her bones, making her skin crawl. The walls felt too thin, too eager to eavesdrop on her desperate thoughts. Just as she decided to dismiss her fears, a dark lullaby rising insidiously in the back of her mind, an unsettling knock sounded at the door. It was Mr. Thompson, the elderly historian of the neighborhood. His eyes glinted with knowledge, but they were clouded by secrets. "Don't dig too deep, Sarah, some things are better left buried," he warned, sending a shiver down her spine. His breath swirled in the autumn air like a ghostly fog. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Days turned into restless nights. Sarah could feel the dread tightening its grip. She buried herself in the letters, unraveling tales of long-buried family secrets, rituals to appease the Watcher, tales of betrayal echoing through generations. Each page unveiled a truth that threatened to consume her sanity. As she read, she could feel the essence of those sins coiling around her like a noose. Then came that day. The air felt heavier, buzzing with a sinister energy. Shadows flickered unnaturally at the edges of her vision. And just when she let out a sigh of relief, the power flickered. She glanced towards the living room window as a chill flooded through her. Lily stood frozen, staring wide-eyed at the darkened street. "Yes, there, Mommy," she whispered, trembling. "The man with black eyes." A scream punctured the oppressive silence as she rushed to her children. The weight of her family's dark past suffocated her. There were whispers at night breaking the fragile veil of her world as they beckoned her toward the truth, until she realized one child must be offered to satisfy the cursed entity. Panic surged through her veins. Sarah could now feel the twisted vine of family secrets, the pulse of darkness rising to reclaim its due. She must decide. Protect one at the cost of another? Could she face the Watcher? The shadows closed in, and with a racing heart, she braced herself for the ultimate confrontation. But with each tick of the clock, the question loomed larger: would she lose everything on that haunting night? The clock ticked ominously, each sound echoing through the thickening silence. Sarah's heart raced as she locked eyes with Lily, who continued to tremble, a ghostly pallor casting a shadow over her youthful features. "We have to get out of here," Sarah insisted, her voice barely above a whisper. But as she reached for Ethan, a sudden chill swept over her, as if ice had claimed the very air in the room. The door creaked open before she could turn the handle. Sarah's gut twisted, and in that moment she felt an unseen weight pressing down on her, as if the Watcher was already inside the house. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, breaking the spell. He pointed toward the window. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she turned to look. There he was, a figure standing in the darkness just beyond the streetlight's reach, his limbs unnaturally elongated, black eyes glistening like obsidian. "Get away from the window!" Sarah screamed, fear coursing through her like wildfire. As she yanked Ethan back from the window, the shadow seemed to melt and swirl, disappearing into the night. Was it even there, Or was it her imagination playing tricks? Shadows had a way of merging with reality, especially when dread held the reins. Just as she forced her children to the back of the house, a frantic scratching sound rippled from the door. It started as a whisper of nails against wood, an unsettling reminder that the nightmare hadn't ended. "He knows we're here," Sarah said, her voice trembling. The stories spoke of boundaries not to be crossed, of a ritual gone wrong. Had her ancestors summoned something that couldn't be contained? Without a thought, she snatched the letters strewn across the table, desperate to find anything that could help. The words blurred in her mind, drowned out by the low hum of terror that settled in the corners of her thoughts. She stumbled upon a passage. "The eldest child shall be given as the price. The offering must be made at midnight to quench the watcher's thirst." Her breath quickened as she stared at the clock. It was almost midnight. "Mommy, I'm scared," Ethan whimpered, clutching Lily's hand. They were both wide-eyed, shadows dancing beneath their frantic glances. Sarah felt the chill return. A whisper at the edges of her mind urged her to abandon caution. The watcher was hungry, and there was a price she might not be able to pay. "Stay here," she commanded, forcing herself to put on a brave face. She moved to the door, heart pounding in rhythm with the relentless ticking of the clock. The scratching had stopped, and an eerie quiet enveloped the house, making everything feel too still, too expectant. As she gripped the doorknob, a flash of movement caught her eye, something darting in the corner of the room. Turning abruptly, she saw the dark shape coiling itself at her children's feet, whispering secrets that made her blood run cold. "Mommy, it's him!" Lily screamed, eyes wide with terror. The figure materialized again, creeping closer. Fear held her frozen. "What do you want?" she shouted into the darkness, voice quaking but demanding answers. "I need a choice." The whisper filled the room, an echo that seemed to breathe with malevolence. It was a lullaby wrapped in snatches of pain, sinister and beckoning. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of her ancestors' sins, pressing into her chest, wrapping her in desperation. She needed to act. But which child would she save? Would the Watcher settle for one or claim them both? The clock struck midnight. A scream caught in her throat as the shadows surged forward, closing in like a hungry tide. One choice, one sacrifice. The question hung heavily in the air. In the face of terror, could she make the right decision before all was lost? The walls of the room seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting as the shadows pressed in, eager for their prize. Sarah's heart drummed at a feverish pace. The terrifying decision rattled through her mind. Who could she give up? In that moment of unbearable dread, she felt the room spin. Panic clawed at her insides. "Ethan! Lily!" she rasped, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to get to the basement. That was supposed to be safe. Down there, they could hide, or at least find a way to barricade themselves from whatever loomed in the darkness." But as she turned, the shadow writhed, elongating toward them, tendrils of dark mist swirling in hypnotic patterns. "You can't run from me," it hissed, its voice an unsettling melody that echoed around the room. The ground beneath her trembled, and Sarah dropped the letters, her grip faltering. They scattered like autumn leaves, their warnings lost to panic. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his voice breaking, full of fear. Sarah felt her flesh prickling, as if someone were watching her from every angle. The basement door loomed like a dark mouth, gaping and hungry. Yet each step toward it felt like a betrayal, something primal warning her not to go down there. "Mommy! Don't leave us!" Lily shrieked, and with that, Sarah's heart broke. She couldn't do this. Not her children. The clock's sound gripped her thoughts, a relentless countdown that fell in sync with her breaths. With swift resolve, Sarah lunged for the door but stuttered to a halt. A frigid gust blasted through the house, extinguishing the flickering light of the lamp in the corner. The oppressive darkness clawed at her, wrapping around her throat. "It won't let you take them," the darkness crooned. In that moment, Sarah's instincts didn't whisper, they screamed. She grabbed both children, yanking them behind her, hoarding them against her back. "We will fight!" she shouted, a surge of adrenaline spilling through her. But deep inside she trembled, wondering how one could fight something so ancient. With shaking hands, she re-grabbed the letters, frantically searching for any clue that might provide a glimmer of hope. The offering must be made, but what did it mean? Was there a way to appease the Watcher without sacrificing one of her children? The whispers grew louder, an amalgamation of lost souls that filled the room. No price is ever too high, they breathed, chilling her to the core. The shadows warped, twisting into forms that looked unnervingly human, faces appearing and melding together like a funeral procession led by grief. Then she heard it, the dull, rhythmic thud of footsteps ascending from the basement. Her breath quickened, an icy hand gripping her heart as the door to the basement creaked open. "Shut it!" Sarah screamed, spinning to face the looming darkness. She scrambled backward, heart racing, frozen like prey watching its predator. But it was too late. A figure, taller than any man should be, slipped through the doorway and into the room. The shadows spiraled around it like hungry moths to flames. Its mouth twisted into a mockery of a smile. "I have come for what is owed," it intoned, the very air thickening with malice. "Please!" Sarah begged, voice cracking, her heart tearing in her chest. "You don't have to do this. Let them go. Only one child shall remain." The words settled like ash in her lungs, suffocating her hope. It had come down to it. Choices, sacrifices. But whose life would she barter for their survival? The glimmer of the clock now dominated her vision, each tick slicing deeper into her thoughts. The Watcher stepped closer, eyes gleaming, power radiating through the air. Sarah's world shrank to those two faces she loved, terrified and innocent. As time slipped away, one terrifying truth emerged. She would have to act. Because she could feel the Watcher's hunger, a void desperate to be filled. In that moment of desperation, she knew she had to decide before the darkness consumed them all. And just before everything blurred into oblivion, Sarah whispered, "I choose." In that instant, the very fabric of her reality shifted. What lay on the other side of her choice would change everything. But was there even a right choice at all? The moment the words fell from Sarah's lips, dread rippled through the room, a malevolent energy warping the very air around them. "I choose," she said again, but this time it sounded more like a plea than a determination. The shadows shivered like a living thing, eagerly anticipating her declaration. "What have you chosen?" The Watcher leaned closer, its breath icy against her skin, the taste of decay mingling with fear. Ethan clutched at her leg, trembling, while Lily's wide eyes darted between her mother and the dark figure. The weight of their fear pressed down on Sarah, suffocating her sense of resolve. A sudden crash split the silence. A chair toppled over as the house seemed to groan in protest. The shadows enveloped the Watcher, creating a vortex of chaos swirling around them. Sarah felt time melt away, the boundaries of her decision twisting, expanding like the darkness around her. "Mommy! Please!" Ethan's voice sliced through the haze, desperate and piercing. She couldn't answer him. Instead, she stood frozen, the weight of her choice swirling before her like a tempest. "Choose wisely," the Watcher warned, lips curling into that grotesque smile, "or all shall be lost." Each beat of the clock echoed in her mind, a countdown to devastation. "Enough!" Sarah snapped, shaking off the paralysis. "I refuse to give one of them up." Rage surged inside her, hot and blazing. She would not be another sacrifice. This monster would not claim her child. The Watcher's smile widened, teeth glinting like shards of glass. "Then your defiance comes with a price." The air thickened as nails raked against the walls, insidious scratching sounds drumming a frantic rhythm. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive, as if it had its own heartbeat. "No!" She wanted to yell, wanted to pound at the walls that felt like they were closing in. "I want to give in!" But as she glanced back at her kids, she saw their expressions twist with terror, rooted in dark, cruel inevitability. The door behind the Watcher splintered. With an unsettling creak, the shadows surged forward, ready to spill their secrets, ready to grab hold of the children. "Mommy!" Lily whimpered, stepping instinctively closer to Sarah, trying to find solace in her mother's presence. In an instant, Sarah was no longer thinking. She grabbed Ethan and Lily's hands tightly, yanking them behind her. "We'll find another way," she shouted, her voice strained. But deep inside, panic tightened its grip around her heart. Was it even possible? No choice? "Then I'll make one for you," the Watcher hissed, and the shadows tightened, creeping toward them, hungry and insatiable. And then, the clock struck a final toll, an ominous knell reverberating through the air. Sarah's breath hitched. With a rush of adrenaline, she lunged toward the basement door, dragging the kids along. "Run!" The darkness roared angrily, twisting and spiraling as they fled. It erupted behind them, a tempest of howling voices. "Your fate is sealed." They stumbled into the basement, slamming the door behind them, but it was clear that their troubles were far from over. Down here, the damp air was thick with memories, whispers of past despair woven into the very foundation. Flickers of light illuminated half-forgotten images on the walls, half-formed faces twisted in pain. "What happens now?" Ethan asked, voice shaking as he looked around, uncertainty clouding his wide eyes. "I don't know," Sarah replied, pulse racing as the silence crept in. "But we have to find a way out before it comes for us." Just then, the edges of the shadows started to bend toward them once more, twisting like a predator inhaling before the strike. And a chilling realization gripped Sarah, a memory from the letters she had dropped, flitting through her mind like a deranged moth. If there is no offering, then the darkness takes all. The basement atmosphere thickened, electric with malevolence, as twisted figures materialized, emerging from the very stone itself. They reached out with skeletal hands, faces contorted in agony, wailing as if trapped between worlds. Sarah staggered back, realizing with dread the souls hungering for salvation, for release. "What do you want?" she gasped, the truth dawning like a sinister sun. "Only one can leave," came the echo of tortured voices. And in that gripping moment, horror enveloped her. Could they make the ultimate sacrifice to save the others? What would they be willing to relinquish? And as shadows encircled them, Sarah's heart thundered with a terrifying dilemma. Would she have to choose who would suffer the most? The whispering grew louder, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating shroud. Her heart raced, each thud echoing the dread creeping up her spine. The figures emerging from the stone wore melancholy like a cloak, their faces twisted in desperation, as if pleading for release. "Only one can leave," the chorus of tortured voices echoed through the oppressive darkness. It was a sickening chant that drummed against her temples, a countdown to a decision that could cost her everything. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, feeling the pull of despair clawing at her resolve. But the shadows lunged forward with an insatiable hunger, clawing at the edges of her sanity, cracking pieces of her determination like fragile glass. "Mommy!" Ethan's whimper pulled her back, grounding her. She turned, searching his terrified face, and the sight of her children filled her with both love and a sharp sting of terror. "I wouldn't let anything happen to you." She swallowed hard, voice steadier than she felt. But as she spoke, the ghostly hands reached closer, each fingertip brushing against her skin with a chill that sent tremors through her body. "Please," the voices pleadingly merged, "let us go." "What do you mean only one can leave?" she yelled, desperation turning her voice raw. "You want me to choose? To sacrifice my own?" "Yes." A figure stepped closer, its skeletal form hovering just out of reach. A face mirrored her own, distorted yet achingly familiar. It was as if she were staring into a nightmarish reflection of the years she'd buried, the guilt of choices made, the lives impacted by her decisions. "No!" she gasped as the horrifying reality thundered in her mind. The darkness was feeding on her regret, her deepest fears materializing into tangible horror. "You can't have us!" she shouted, tightening her grip on Ethan and Lily, pulling them protectively behind her. The shadows writhed, frustrated and impatient, like a hungry beast denied its prey. "One must suffer," the voices hissed, advancing in a phalanx of despair that seemed to darken the air around them. Panic surged through Sarah. The basement felt constricting, pulsating with an energy that throbbed like a living thing. "We have to get out," she muttered to herself, looking around for an escape. But the old basement was continuous, lined with stone that radiated misery, memories woven into the fabric of the air. She could feel it the way despair sank into her bones, how every tortured soul in here echoed a part of her own. "Mommy," Ethan squeaked again, his voice trembling. "What do we do?" A glimmer of something caught her eye, a faint but persistent light in the far corner. A door? Could it be their escape? Sarah gathered her strength and took a deep breath, driving through a primal instinct. "Cling to me. We're getting out. Now!" Lily's small fingers intertwined with Ethan's as they moved toward the light. But the shadows protested violently, shrieking as the light seemed to repel them. Sarah felt it, too, a gnawing weight trying to pull her back. It was a fighting chance, but would it be enough? Give in! Surrender! The voices echoed as they clawed at her mind, wrapping her thoughts in despair. But she refused to listen. The anguish of the past wouldn't dictate their future. Just before they reached the light, a chill swept through the air, freezing them in place. A shadow detached itself from the mass, becoming more defined, towering over them. It bore a resemblance to the Watcher, eyes dark pits illuminated by impossible hatred. "Choose now or suffer forever," it hissed, the weight of its words pressing down like cement. Time felt as if it had splintered, each second stretching into eternity, and Sarah's thoughts spiraled. Would choosing mean losing herself or worse, losing her children? She clenched her jaw and resolved, "We'll never give in." But as thunder cracked above, shaking the very foundations, reality wavered. The light flickered dangerously. In that moment, all their cries merged into one piercing wail, and as the floor trembled, she realized the choice was slipping away. And then came the voice that shattered her. "Resolve, then, by our judgment, you will all stay." A shadowy tendril seized her ankle, dragging her back from the light, and Sarah's heart plummeted. The children screamed, but their voices were drowned out by the gales of anguish swirling around them. In the fray of darkness, she felt herself slipping into the terror she feared the most, realizing one truth above all: it wasn't just about sacrificing. It was about facing their ghosts or succumbing to them forever. As the shadows tightened their grip, she knew the next moment may be the end, or the beginning of a fight she never expected. Would they escape, or would they finally confront what lay in the darkness? Only time would tell, and it was running out. The tendril's grip felt like ice, a frigid clamp that latched onto Sarah's very being. Panic ignited in her chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Ethan! Lily!" she screamed, but their terrified faces seemed to fade as she was pulled deeper into the darkness. "Let them go!" she howled, struggling against the cold shackles but only finding more resistance. The whispers swelled, a cacophony of tormented souls, creeping into her mind until every inch of her felt raw. "Our pain, our grief, it feeds you," they hissed in unison, the shadows pulsating like a heart hungry for sorrow. Just ahead, the flickering light beckoned. Hope glimmered for a moment, illuminating the path back to her children. With a surge of determination, she planted her feet and yanked against the grasp. She felt a searing heat spread from where the shadow touched her. More than just a physical burn, it clawed at her memories, drudging up moments of regret and fear. "Mommy, please!" Ethan's voice broke through, thin and quivering, a fragile thread. Each plea anchored her to reality. "Hold on to each other!" Sarah shouted, summoning every ounce of courage. The shadows were relentless, but she fought harder, images of laughter and love piercing through the dark. She thought of birthday parties, bedtime stories, the way Lily would squeeze her hand just a little tighter when thunder roared. With a primal scream, she yanked free, breaking the grasp of the shadow. It recoiled, surprised, and she darted toward her children. "Run!" she commanded, her voice steady now as she dove into the light. But in her frantic escape, the basement transformed. The walls seemed to stretch and warp, the comforting glow flickering like a dying star. The door was still there, but it wasn't the exit she craved. No, it was a portal into another layer of despair, adorned with dozens of faces that twisted and grimaced, each one parked in the past, reaching for her. "Foolish woman!" a voice roared, and the figure of the Watcher loomed larger, its presence suffocating. "Sacrifices must be made." "Not today!" she screamed, holding her children close. She thrust her hand forward, channeling her maternal instinct fueled by every ounce of love she felt. As she did, the light flared bright enough to cast away the creeping shadows, if only for a moment. Each ghostly face shimmered violently, their expressions of hope turning to fury. The air crackled with energy, sending shocks through Sarah's body. You want my regret? You're feeding on nothing. I want to be your offering. The watcher shrieked and lunged, but the pulse of light blinded it, while the floor quaked and trembled beneath their feet. No! It hissed, clawing at the air, but the essence of love surged through Sarah, burning the chains of grief that threatened to bind her once more. But just when she thought they were free, the cavern walls closed in with an ominous creak. We will never let you go! A furious chorus echoed, forcing Sarah to stumble back, the entanglement of their past reaching for her. She shielded her children, pressing them against the glowing wall of light. Yes, we can escape, but I must choose. She realized, desperation creeping back into her mind. There was another shadow crawling just beyond the light. Unseen, it slipped through the cracks of her past safeguarded memories she had long buried. No! The thought shot through her like an electric current. I want to choose again. But every glimmer of hope began to dim as she felt the darkness wash over her. The air grew dense, suffocating her ability to think. Her children's faces blurred in her vision, melding with visions of the past, the moments she wanted desperately to forget. The laughter, the tears, the choices made. Mommy! A tiny voice pierced through, and Sarah shook herself free, biting back the tendrils of despair. What if we all choose together? Ethan's suggestion echoed in her heart. United they would either face the judgment, or fight back against it. With renewed strength, Sarah rallied her children. Then we choose each other. And as she spoke, their hands clasped tightly together, 3 hearts beating as one amid the clutches of darkness. But the watcher's laughter echoed through the stone, darker than ever. Only one will truly be free. You'll see what I mean. As the shadows lunged, Sarah braced for impact, knowing full well that this was only the beginning of their fight against a past that refused to stay buried. Would they cling to their shared will and love, or would darkness swallow them whole? The choice loomed, thick with dread, as the light flickered uncertainly. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, and the true horror awaited them just beyond the veil. The shadows convulsed, snaking closer, and Sarah felt the chill seeping deeper into her bones. She and her children stood shoulder to shoulder, a trembling line of defense against an onslaught of memories that clawed at her mind. The weight of their past bore down like a lead shroud, and each heartbeat echoed with an anxious drumroll of impending chaos. Mom! I can't! Ethan whimpered, his grip slipping for just a second. Panic washed over Sarah, the sound of his voice more harrowing than the piercing shadows. She squeezed his hand tighter. The warmth of it was the only tether to reality in this abyss of darkness. Stay with me, she commanded, her tone steadier than her rattling heart. With one breath she steadied herself, drawing from the love that had fueled her fight. We are not alone, she whispered fiercely, though her voice trembled. The light responded, flickering more defiantly, casting away the tendrils that whispered lies of failure and despair. The watcher, its grotesque features twisting in rage, wailed out a visceral sound. You think you can escape? I am your past. I am your fears. The faces in the walls writhed in agreement, a chorus that echoed through the cavern. Sarah felt their despair wrap around her, threatening to suffocate her resolve. Each face was a flash of sorrow, a reminder of grief she had buried but never truly left behind. No! She cried, breaking through the cacophony. You don't own me. Not anymore. With her pulse pounding in her ears, she pulled Ethan and Lily close and closed her eyes. We are more than our past. We choose love. The words shot out like arrows, striking the shadows that danced hungrily closer. They seemed to hesitate, as if evaluating the strength of her resolution. For a moment, the oppressive gloom fractured, revealing slivers of light that ignited hope within her. But then the watcher surged, its voice a monstrous growl. Love is weakness. I will claim your souls, one by one. Suddenly, the darkness shifted, a vortex churning around them, trying to pull them apart. "We have to hold on," Sarah shouted, panic tightening her throat. "Don't let go." As if in answer, the ground heaved violently, fracturing beneath them. The light stammered, flickering erratically like a candle in a storm. With determination igniting in her chest, Sarah pulled her children into a huddle, shielding them as best she could. The Watcher's hands lashed out, reaching for Lily, who stood wide-eyed with fear. Sarah turned, instinctively positioning herself between them. "You can't have her!" she roared, her voice cracking through the whirlwind of chaos. In that moment, Sarah felt a surge from within, raw and unyielding, the instinct to protect, to battle the darkness plaguing her family. Memories spilled forth her own mother's love, the warmth of home, echoing laughs in a world brighter than this. Like shrapnel, buried moments erupting into clarity, reminding her of who they were beneath the weight of shadows. This was not just her fight, it was theirs too. "Together!" she shouted, her voice a war cry against despair. "Together!" With a jolt, they channeled the essence of their bond. Light radiated from their joined hands, a powerful force that surged forward, pushing against the shadow's grip. The Watcher reeled, its monstrous face contorting in disbelief. "How dare you!" it screeched, rage boiling over. But uncertainty flickered in the Watcher's gaze. Could they truly escape this embedded darkness together? Sarah felt the shadows begin to loosen, a web of hope unfurling. Yet, just as victory appeared within reach, the cavern trembled ominously. The walls began to pulse, bleeding darkness. "You think you can conquer me?" the Watcher howled, more furious than before. "You will pay dearly for this defiance." As the very ground twisted beneath them, Sarah knew their struggle was far from over. This battle was merely the precursor, and the true horror lurked just beyond the light, waiting patiently for its moment to strike again. What skeletons from their past still lay buried, waiting for the right moment to return? The light flickered, pulses racing like an electric current, and the shadows recoiled with a menacing hiss. Relief was fleeting, sharp as a glass shard. Hope no longer felt like a companion. Instead, it morphed into dread, a shadow of its own. With every heaving breath, Sarah's heart sank. They weren't free yet. "Mom!" Ethan cried, fear splintering his voice as he fought to keep close. But as Sarah looked down, a chill slithered down her spine. The ground beneath them was no longer solid. It was soft, like damp earth, molding to the shapes of her anxiety. Cracks appeared, dark veins of sorrow spreading outward, threatening to swallow them whole. "Don't look away! Keep your eyes on me," she urged, her voice strained but firm. As they locked gazes, a swirling mass of grief erupted around them, screaming silent horrors. The walls around them writhed, faces contorting in agony. Each visage reflected painful memories she had tried to forget, an abandoned childhood home, whispers beneath her mother's breath, and the judgment from so many eyes that followed her. "Leave me!" she shouted, the words clawing their way out with desperation. Then she saw it, the Watcher, its malignant form stretching from shadow to shadow, a visceral amalgamation of every fear that clung to her thoughts. "You cannot escape," it growled. "I am the remnant of your grief, your despair, your betrayal." With its words, the air crackled with energy, tangible and thick. A bitter chill wrapped around Sarah, wrapping her in memories she'd rather shred than relive. She stumbled back slightly, terror-infused nausea gnawing at her gut. "Betrayal?" she murmured, her voice breaking. Suddenly, the faces in the darkness blurred into one familiar silhouette, a figure hovering just behind the chaotic veil. "Mom?" Sarah whispered, heart racing. The specter of her own mother moved closer, its features morphing between the comforting and the terrifying. The nostalgic nightmare pressed against her chest, squeezing tighter, gasping for release. Why was she here? Why now? "Stand with me, Sarah," the apparition crooned, the voice a haunting melody soaked in echoes of love and regret. "Get away!" she shouted, propelled by instinct. She remembered her mother's last moments, a chilling reminder of fragility and inevitable loss. But the Watcher seized on that vulnerability, laughing, a cacophony of disjointed echoes. You thought you could forget? You thought you could change? Ethan shifted closer to Sarah, their bond reinforced by shared terror. As he gripped her hand tighter, the warmth rose around them, a flickering fire amidst the ice. "We are more than this," he cried, mirroring her earlier words, casting a glimmering hope into the abyss. "Yes," Lily echoed, her innocent voice a powerful incantation that pushed back against the black tendrils of despair. In unison, they formed an unbreakable line. The encroaching shadows hesitated, shifting with uncertainty. Together. Sarah's resolve rekindled, but shadows danced menacingly, twisting the light. And then something shifted. The cavern trembled again, fissures zigzagging across the earth, as if reality itself was about to collapse. What now? She thought, panic clawing at her sanity, the sensation of falling clawing even deeper. The faces in the dark, they began to merge, morphing into something grotesque, something grotesquely familiar. Suddenly, a chaotic howl tore through the air, pulling them apart, separate threads in a fabric of fear. "We don't have time!" Anna screamed, her face a mask of grim determination. "Stay!" Sarah shouted, fear flooding her voice as the shadows began to tug her away. "I want to let you go!" But what came next tore through her heart like a knife. The Watcher laughed, revealing a depth of malice she had never experienced. She knew now this was only a prologue to a deeper horror. "You're not ready for the truth. Watch as I drag your beloved memories back into the dark." And just like that, the world around her shattered, revealing haunting visions, each strife, each sorrow, parading in grotesque clarity. Sarah felt her soul vibrating with panic at the horrors unleashed. Something darker roamed nearby, weaving through the air like a predator lying in wait. What was this truth? What lay beneath the surface of her buried past, clawing to be unveiled? The Watcher's cackle danced in her ears as terror twisted tighter around them, leaving only one haunting thought: what hell awaited them when the shadows finally revealed their secrets. A deafening silence enveloped them, the laughter of the Watcher echoing in haunting waves that seemed palpable, wrapping around Sarah like chains. Each shuddering breath felt heavier than the last, pulling her deeper into the abyss. As shadows flickered and danced, she could sense an overwhelming weight in the air, a thick blanket of despair, smothering any flicker of hope. "Mom!" Ethan shouted again, panic cracking his voice like fragile glass. Sarah wanted to reach for him, but a dark force kept her feet anchored, sinking into the damp soil beneath them. The ground shivered, fissures widening with every shriek of the Watcher's taunts. "Remember the day you lost her?" It hissed, voices merging into a symphony of despair. "How you promised to stay strong, yet here you are, drowning in your own misery. It's time to face your truth." "No!" she screamed, but her voice was drowned by the chaos. Shadows spiraled around them, twisting into shapes that poked at the fragile edges of her sanity. Memories struck like jagged blades. Her childhood, once filled with laughter, now spilled anchors of sorrow tied to each moment she tried to forget. Visceral images were plastered across her vision: the cold, sterile hospital room where her mother had taken her last breath, the unyielding silence that followed, drowning the last remnants of their time together. She fought to hold on to Ethan, feeling his small hands slip as shadows pulled at them with relentless hunger. "Stay close," Sarah managed, struggling against the wave of darkness. Ethan's eyes were wide, filled with the same hardened terror. She saw him searching for solace in their surroundings. Was it just darkness, or was there a glimmer of escape hidden within the chaos? The Watcher loomed closer, its presence pulsating with unearthly power. "What will you do to save him?" it taunted, vice-like fingers tightening around her heart. "Would you sacrifice the boy for your own peace?" "Never!" she shouted back, heart pounding with each beat that echoed in the dark. But self-doubt clawed at her. What would she sacrifice? Was she strong enough to put the past away? Memories from her childhood rose to the surface, bitter and unyielding, beckoning her to take a detour down those familiar paths of regret. In the midst of her spiraling thoughts, a deafening growl erupted from the shadows. Tendrils of black reached out, swirling around them like midnight smoke. Faces emerged angry, sorrowful, lost each one an echo of her past pleading for recognition. They mingled with the Watcher's form, merging terror with familiarity, amplifying every wrong turn she had ever taken. "Look!" it demanded, voice rippling through the room. "They all joined me. You can't outrun your past." "No!" Sarah fought against the despair clawing at her resolve. She shut her eyes tight, willing herself to breathe, to think. She could sense Ethan's pulse racing, the warmth of his small hand squeezing hers tightly. "We have to focus. Together, remember?" The shadows hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their depths as Sarah concentrated. "Think of love, of joy," she murmured, her voice shaking, but staunch. "Not all was darkness. We can overcome this." Ethan's grip tightened, grounding her as they focused on their love for each other, the brief moments of laughter that outweighed the sorrow. Anna's face, full of light from a sun-soaked afternoon, burst to the front of Sarah's mind. A fragile warmth began to spread outwards, pushing back against the shadow web clinging to them. With renewed determination, Sarah shouted into the void, "We won't be your prisoners. We deserve to be free." The Watcher roared in fury, the ground trembling as fissures formed a deep chasm between them and the ghastly presence. But one final thought raced through Sarah's mind: what if confronting the darkness meant facing more than she could bear? In the midst of the chaos, a voice threaded through the darkness, just beyond the void. "If you can gather the shattered pieces, the truth might set you free, but what would that truth reveal?" Shimmering dread slithered through her thoughts as she questioned if they were prepared for what lay hidden in the depths of their past. Together, they faced the encroaching shadows, hearts pounding, racing towards an unseen precipice. What awaited them on the other side of that darkness? The shadows loomed, whispering twisted fragments of memories, each pushing Sarah closer to the brink of despair. She could feel their tendrils clawing at her resolve, begging her to give in, to yield to the weight of grief they carried. Yet, as she stood side by side with Ethan and Lily, a fire ignited within her, one that refused to be extinguished. "Together!" she shouted again, heat coursing through her veins like wildfire. The echo of those who had loved and lost fueled her spirit. She felt the warmth of her children bolstering her courage, anchoring her against the chaos. So much had been taken from them, yet they carried the light, even when surrounded by darkness. The Watcher twisted and pulsed in front of them, contempt etched in its features. "You think love will save you? Love is a weakness, a soft spot I will exploit. One soul must pay if the rest are to escape." "Never!" Sarah shouted defiantly. "We refuse to sacrifice our love for this nightmare." She pressed her children closer, wrapping them in a protective cocoon while stepping forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As she stepped into the shadows, something shifted. The darkness shivered, as though it recognized the tenacity behind her words. "You stand on the edge of despair," the Watcher hissed, "and yet you fight. How utterly foolish! I will claim what is owed." "No!" Each heartbeat pounded in Sarah's chest, a reminder of the love that fueled her drive. "This time, I choose to fight back." With a surge of adrenaline, she drew from the lessons of her family's past. "If my love is weakness, then let that weakness be my strength." And in that moment, she reached down deep into herself, summoning every ounce of love and connection, igniting a light that pushed against the dark. Ethan and Lily joined her, their hands tightly clasped together, hearts beating in synchrony as they amplified Sarah's resolve. As she focused on that love, a radiant light erupted from their hearts into a brilliant blaze, illuminating the shadows with an intensity that held them momentarily at bay. "You cannot!" the Watcher shrieked, recoiling as its limbs flailed. "You shall not defy me!" But Sarah could feel the shadows trembling, the fabric of sorrow beginning to loosen its grip on her family. They pressed further together, forming a solid front line against the darkness. "Choose, Watcher," Sarah challenged, her voice strong and unwavering. "Take us all or let us all go. Sacrifice means nothing if we stand united." The darkness spewed venomous laughter, but this time, it faltered. The shadows began to rip, as light poured into the void, exposing the true forms of lost souls writhing within. She could see their faces now, not monsters, but people, familiar figures pleading to be released from their tortured existence. "Let them go!" Sarah cried out, her heart aching for each lost visage. "Let us all be free from this curse." As their unified voices thrummed through the air, the Watcher shrieked, its form flickering with the tension of desperation. Suddenly, the cavernous room shuddered, walls bending and pulsing as if alive, shifting and spinning in a kaleidoscope of memories. "It can't end like this," the Watcher groaned, a sneer hidden beneath its facade of rage. Determined, Sarah took one last deep breath as the other lost souls began to radiate their light. "We are more than just our past," she shouted as the force of love surged through them, breaking the chains that shackled so many. "We are family." In unison, the spirits joined them, pouring their combined strength into an incandescent explosion that rolled through every shadow, sweeping the darkness back. The Watcher howled, panic racing through its voice. "No! You want to escape me!" But they continued to surge forward, a tidal wave of love, releasing the past and illuminating the future. With one final, shattering scream, the darkness shattered, peeling away like a scab, revealing the true selves beneath. And just like that, they were standing in the warm glow of their home, smelling the familiar scent of vanilla and cinnamon wafting from the kitchen, laughter spilling into the hallways. Sarah looked around, eyes wide, bewildered yet relieved. The shadows were gone. The Watcher was nothing more than an echo of their past, the weight of loss now transformed into bittersweet memories. "I think it's over," Ethan whispered, glancing around with cautious awe. The air felt lighter, laughter hung in the air, every shared smile and every embrace connected them anew. "Together," Sarah repeated, pulling both children into her arms with overwhelming affection. "Yes, together always," Lily echoed, beaming brightly with innocence. And in that moment Sarah knew they were free not just from the shackles of their past, but to live their lives intertwined in love, aided by memories but never overshadowed by them. They had faced the darkness and won, choosing love over loss. And as they filled their home with joy once more, a beautiful future awaited them, one they would create together. Sometimes, choosing love meant facing your deepest fears and coming out stronger on the other side. If you enjoyed the journey, don't wait. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and be part of this incredible community. Flood the comments section below with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about this epic ending. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.